The glass doors of Pinnacle Financial Tower slid open with a whisper, revealing the kind of morning that belonged to the powerful. Sunlight fractured across polished marble, caught in the steel and glass, and spilled into a lobby alive with quiet awe. Every employee knew that when Tamara Lewis Brooks stepped off the platinum elevator, the air itself seemed to reconfigure. She moved like a woman born of destiny, not privilege. 42 years old, tall, commanding, her burgundy Versace suit hugging a frame sculpted by discipline rather than indulgence. Her natural hair, gathered into an elegant updo, crowned her face like laurel, accentuating cheekbones that had been sharpened by years of courtroom battles and boardroom wars. She carried no bag except a slim leather folio, no hesitation except the calculation that made her one of Manhattan's most formidable lawyers. Heads turned, they always did. Analysts froze mid-sentence, assistants fumbled their phones, and even the hardened traders paused, as if drawn by gravity itself. Sophia Reed, Ethan's assistant, fell into step beside her, announcing with reverence, "Mrs. Brooks, the Beijing investors are waiting in conference room A." Everyone knew the Beijing deal was Tamara's masterpiece, the crown jewel of a year's work. She had learned Mandarin herself, refusing to rely on translators, building trust across oceans until the partnership was inevitable. This was the morning she would close it, the kind of deal that rewrote the skyline. The elevator chimed again, and silence thickened. Ethan Brooks stepped out like a man who had been choreographed by fate itself. 6'2", shoulders broad beneath a charcoal Tom Ford suit, his dark hair flecked with silver that lent him gravitas rather than age. At 45, he was still the dream most women whispered about, the standard most men envied, but his eyes were not scanning the floor for admirers. They sought only one person. "There's my queen," he said, his voice carrying just enough to be heard across the entire 40th floor. Conversations collapsed into silence. He crossed the marble in 3 purposeful strides, hands finding Tamara's waist like it was ritual, and kissed her. Not the polite brush of lips most married executives offered in public, but a kiss so deep, so unapologetically intimate that 30 employees forgot their own names for a moment. It was a kiss that said this empire was built on more than contracts and capital. It was built on devotion. Tamara laughed softly against his mouth, her hands pressed to his chest in mock protest. "Ethan," she teased, aware of the audience. "The Beijing team can wait 60 seconds while I kiss my wife," he replied, drawing back only far enough to gaze into her eyes. His thumb traced the line of her jaw, reverent, practiced, as if memorizing her all over again. "You left before dawn. I missed you." "You were sleeping too peacefully," she murmured, straightening his tie with fingers that had built an empire alongside his. "And you know I wanted one last pass through the contracts." "Of course you did," he said, his smile a weapon and a promise. "My brilliant, unstoppable force of nature. Beijing doesn't stand a chance." The floor pretended to resume work, screens glowing, papers rustling, but everyone was watching. They always watched. This was the Ethan and Tamara show, a performance of epic romance that made jaded employees believe, if only for a moment, that real love existed. They weren't just executives, they were legends. 2 people who had built Brooks Associates from a garage startup into a billion-dollar fortress, and through it all, they had remained desperately, publicly, embarrassingly in love. "Mom, seriously, it's not even 9 a.m., the voice came from the elevator, half teasing, half embarrassed. Marcus Brooks, 18, leaned against the chrome doors with a lacrosse bag slung over his shoulder. His father's jawline and height met his mother's warm brown eyes, creating a young man destined to break hearts without effort. Columbia University's acceptance letter weighed in his pocket, but for now, he was just a son watching his parents remind the world that love could survive success. Tamara turned, her face softening instantly. "Marcus, what are you doing here, baby?" "Wanted to steal Dad for breakfast," he said, accepting his father's handshake that transformed into a hug. "But I see he's busy marking his territory. Smart men make their priorities clear. Ethan said, keeping one arm still wrapped around Tamara. Speaking of which, how about dinner tonight? That new place downtown, Lumiere. The one with the 3-month waiting list? Tamara raised an eyebrow. Had a table since January, Ethan said, winking. For my 2 favorite people in the world. Marcus groaned, rolling his eyes, though his grin betrayed him. You guys are disgusting, like scientifically impossible levels of disgusting. Just wait until you find your person, Tamara said, smoothing his collar. If I ever act like you two, please stage an intervention, Marcus muttered, but the softness in his eyes told the truth. He adored them. For his friends, love meant affairs, cold marriages, or whispered scandals. For him, love was his parents, slow dancing in the kitchen, leaving notes in each other's briefcases, sneaking away for lunch like teenagers. Sophia reappeared with a whisper. Mr. Brooks, your 9:30 is here. Ethan sighed, kissed Tamara once more, quick but tender. Destroy Beijing, baby. Show them how we do it in New York. She nodded, confidence blazing. Always. As she walked toward the conference room, Ethan called out, loud enough for the entire floor to hear. Tamara, I love you. Ridiculously, embarrassingly, completely. She turned, lips curving. I love you too, she said simply, though her eyes conveyed 1,000 unsaid vows. The entire floor exhaled, some with envy, some with hope. Watching Ethan and Tamara Brooks was like watching a live performance of epic romance. A marriage forged in fire, crowned with gold, untouchable, unbreakable. They were proof that love could last, that empire and intimacy could coexist. And yet, no one knew the kiss that morning would be remembered not as a symbol of eternity, but as the last perfect illusion before betrayal crept in that very night. Saturday sunlight spilled across the marble kitchen like a spotlight, and Tamara Lewis Brooks moved inside it with the ease of a woman who had learned to build peace out of chaos. She tied her silk robe tighter, humming Stevie Wonder while preparing Ethan's favorite meal. Jambalaya simmered on the stove, the scent of smoked sausage and peppers filling every corner of the house. The mansion felt different on weekends. No board meetings, no international calls echoing from Ethan's office, just silence, the kind that allowed her to remember she was more than Mrs. Brooks the lawyer or co-CEO. She was Tamara, the woman who still loved cooking with the recipes her grandmother taught her in New Orleans, back when the only wealth they had was family. Marcus was at lacrosse practice. Ethan had retreated to his home office to polish the Singapore presentation. That left her with 3 uninterrupted hours to cook, to breathe, to imagine surprising him with a meal plated just the way he liked it. Rice molded in a perfect circle, jambalaya poured around it like a moat, parsley scattered like emerald confetti. She brewed his sweet tea in her grandmother's crystal pitcher, the one that had survived storms and moves across the country. Everything about the moment felt warm, steady, grounded, until she climbed the staircase. The office door stood ajar. That was unusual. Ethan guarded his focus like treasure. She heard his voice, low, "You, professional." She hesitated, ready to wait outside until the call ended, but when she pushed the door open, the office was empty. His chair faced the window, papers scattered across the desk in messy contrast to his usual precision. His coffee sat untouched, cold, a slick film across its surface. The Singapore presentation glowed on his 3 monitors. Ethan was nowhere to be found. Her tray clinked softly as she set it down. She frowned. "Ethan?" she called into the silence. No answer. The bathroom door was closed, but there was no sound behind it. She crossed the room, straightening his papers by habit, and that was when she saw it. A silk scarf, coral and gold, draped across the back of his chair like a secret thrown carelessly in her path. Hermes, she recognized instantly. Ethan had bought her dozens over the years, each catalogued in her memory. But this one was foreign, not hers. The perfume clinging to it was louder than the fabric, young, aggressive, vanilla, and synthetic musk. Nothing like her signature scent of wood sage and sea salt. Her hand trembled as she lifted it, and then she noticed the detail that turned the room into a crime scene. A single strand of golden blonde hair caught in the silk. Long, smooth, expensively maintained. Not hers. Her hair was black, always had been, always would be. The strand caught the sunlight, glinting like a blade aimed at her chest. Her brain, trained to sift evidence like a litigator, began cataloging facts. Ethan's late nights these past months, the new cologne she had pretended not to notice, the sudden habit of taking calls in the car rather than the office, the unexplained trips that never showed up on the company calendar. No, she whispered to herself, forcing her breathing steady. Not Ethan. Not us. She shoved the strand into her pocket, draped the scarf back exactly where it had been. Seconds later, footsteps echoed in the hall. Ethan appeared in the doorway wearing the Harvard sweatshirt she bought him years ago, his hair damp for a shower. His face lit up with delight when he spotted the tray. Baby, is that jambalaya I smell? You didn't have to, he said, stepping forward. Her heart thudded hard against her ribs. She studied him. Was there guilt in his smile? Was there a story hiding in the scratch on his neck? Did he know what she had just found? She forced herself to smile, smooth and flawless, the mask sliding into place. I thought you deserved a break, she answered, her voice calm, her hand steady as she passed him the plate. He kissed her cheek. You spoil me. You're perfect. And while he ate, praising her cooking with that boyish grin that once melted her heart, she sat across from him, silent. Every bite he took tasted like betrayal in her mouth. Every word he spoke sounded like a lie waiting to be proven. Upstairs in their bedroom, later that day, she locked the door, pulled the golden strand from her pocket, stared at it against her reflection in the mirror. Such a small thing to unravel 20 years. She slid it into an envelope, sealed it, and placed it in the safe behind her winter coats. Evidence. Preserved. If Ethan Brooks thought she would crumble, he was about to learn who he had married. Not a woman who broke, a woman who strategized, a woman who could build an empire out of nothing and burn one down with the same hands. When she returned to the living room, he pulled her into his lap and kissed her forehead, whispering, How did I get so lucky? She smiled sweetly, while every cell in her body prepared for war. The morning sky over Manhattan was still pale when Tamara slid out of bed, her movements quiet, precise, the way a thief moves when they know the stakes are life itself. She stood at the window, arms folded, watching the city stir awake while Ethan slept behind her. She had been awake for hours, her mind a battlefield of memories and strategies. Today would be the first day she wore the perfect mask. When Ethan stirred, she slipped back into the role with practiced grace. She leaned over him, brushed her lips across his cheek, and whispered, Good morning, my love. The words tasted like copper, but she delivered them as though they were the purest devotion. He blinked awake, smiling in that careless way that once disarmed her. You're up early? Couldn't sleep? Too excited about Beijing closing today? She lied, tracing circles on his chest with her fingertip. She pressed coffee into his hands before he even asked. Ethiopian blend, 2 sugars, oat milk, exactly the way he liked it. His brow furrowed in surprise. You haven't made my coffee in months. You're spoiling me today. Maybe I realized I haven't been giving you enough of me, she said, eyes wide, soft, believable. Work has been consuming me, but none of it matters without us. His gaze softened, the kind of look that once made her knees weak. You could never neglect me. We're partners in everything, remember? Partners. The word cut sharper than any blade. She smiled, kissed him, and pulled him into the shower. He followed eagerly, like a man offered a second chance. She washed his back, her hands lingering, memorizing. She wasn't only touching her husband, she was searching for evidence, cataloging every detail, a fading scratch on his neck, a bruise low on his hip, fingerprint-sized, new body wash clinging to his skin, not the one they kept in the marble shower caddy. He talked about market expansions and merger strategies while she gathered data the way generals collect intelligence before a war. Tell me something, she murmured, leaning close, water cascading between them. If there was ever someone else, you'd tell me, wouldn't you? You'd respect me enough to tell me the truth. For the smallest second, his body tensed. Most would have missed it, but Tamara felt it, pressed against him, under the rainfall stream. His voice was steady, but too quick. There could never be anyone else. You're my entire world. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. And you're mine, she said, and it was the most flawless lie she had ever told. At breakfast, she sliced grapefruit with surgical precision while Marcus studied them from across the table. He was too perceptive, always had been. You guys are acting weird, he said, squinting at them. Weird how? Tamara asked, pouring tea with perfect calm. Extra coupley, like you're performing or something. Ethan chuckled, squeezing her hand. Your mom had a bad dream, just reminded us not to take each other for granted. Marcus frowned, unconvinced, but let it go. He kissed her cheek, bumped fists with Ethan, and left for school. The house fell silent again. Ethan disappeared into his office, his voice soon rising in confident tones on another call. Tamara sat at the kitchen island, staring at her untouched plate. Her mask had held all morning, but it was heavy. She picked up her phone and dialed Elise Carter, her best friend since law school. Lunch today, she said when Elise answered. I need to talk. Elise's voice sharpened instantly, hearing the edge in her tone. What happened? Just meet me, Tamara replied, her eyes flicking toward the closed office door where her husband spoke about profits and markets as though he hadn't shattered 20 years of trust. When she hung up, she caught her reflection in the glass. Her face was calm, composed, beautiful, but her eyes, they weren't the eyes of the woman who had built an empire beside her husband. They were the eyes of a strategist who had just chosen her battlefield. From that moment, Ethan Brooks would never again see his wife. He would only see her mask, and he would never know he was standing on the stage of his own downfall, every line already rehearsed, every scene already set. Marcus Brooks had inherited both his mother's instincts and his father's stubbornness, and that combination made him dangerous in ways neither parent had fully reckoned with. He had been raised on a steady diet of honesty and ambition, watching his parents kiss in boardrooms and strategize at the dinner table. To him, their love was the foundation of everything. So when he began to sense cracks forming in the perfect picture, it unsettled him in a way nothing else ever had. He told them he was staying at Noah's for the night, but he didn't. Instead, he parked his car down the street, staring at the mansion that had always felt like a fortress. The lights in his parents' bedroom flicked off earlier than usual. His mother's laughter had changed in the last week. Too polished, too bright, the same way his father's tone changed when he was hiding bad quarterly results from the board. Marcus wasn't a child anymore. He knew when a performance was being staged. The next afternoon, he returned home earlier than expected, claiming he'd forgotten his lacrosse gear. What he really wanted was confirmation. He found his mother in his father's office, standing at the mahogany desk with her phone raised, snapping photos of documents. "Mom," he said quietly. She didn't flinch, didn't even turn fast. She slipped the phone into her pocket and offered him a smile that was too smooth to be real. "Marcus, baby, I thought you had practice." "Forgot my gear." He stepped into the room, noting the contracts spread across the desk, the faint tension in her shoulders. "What are you doing?" "Your father asked me to send him some files." Her lie was practiced, but Marcus had grown up studying her in courtrooms. He knew when her truth bent. "His car is in the garage," Marcus said. "James picked him up for golf with the Samsung execs. You're not sending him anything." For a second, her mask cracked. He saw it in her eyes, the raw flash of pain she had been hiding. Then it vanished as quickly as it came. She crossed to him, straightening his collar with maternal precision. "How's the calculus project?" "Don't do that," he said, catching her hands. "Don't dodge me. What's going on?" Her breath caught, and for a moment, she looked at him not as her child, but as an equal. The weight in her gaze was heavy, almost unbearable. Finally, she whispered, "Not here. Drive with me." They took her Tesla, the silence between them louder than any words. She parked at the marina where she and Ethan used to walk when they were young and broke, when love was their only currency. She stared out at the water before speaking. "Your father is having an affair." The words fell like an executioner's blade. Marcus gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, his chest tightening. You're wrong. Dad wouldn't. He loves you. He loves us. She pulled out her phone, showed him the photo of the blonde hair against the coral scarf. She explained the perfume, the missing hours, the evidence she had begun to gather like ammunition. I'll kill him, Marcus said, his voice low, steady, more frightening than if he had screamed. No, she said sharply, turning to face him. You'll do nothing except what I tell you. This isn't anger, Marcus. This is strategy. If we lash out, we lose. We need to know everything first. You want me to just sit and watch him betray us? I want you to help me. You're brilliant with computers. I need you to find out who she is, how long it's been going on, what he's hiding. You're my soldier now. He stared at her, torn between fury and loyalty. Finally, he nodded. Fine, but we do this my way, secure, untraceable. That night, the pool house became their war room. Marcus set up 3 laptops, encrypted connections bouncing through half a dozen countries. His mother sat beside him, watching as he cracked into his father's personal accounts. Hotel charges, jewelry purchases, restaurant bills for 2. Each discovery twisted the knife deeper. When Marcus pulled up a Venmo transaction history, he laughed bitterly. He's stupid enough to use his real account, Vanessa Van Hartley. Does that name mean anything to you? Tamara's lips pressed into a line. Not yet, but it will. Marcus clicked through social media profiles until her face appeared on the screen. Blonde, young, glossy, the kind of woman who posted filtered photos with vague captions about blessings. The kind of woman who thought she was the exception when really she was just the next in a long line. She's nobody, Marcus spat, and he's throwing everything away for her. Tamara laid a hand on his arm. Her voice was soft, but her eyes were fire. Then we'll make sure he loses more than he ever thought possible. This isn't just betrayal anymore, Marcus. This is war, and wars are won with intelligence. In that moment, mother and son became allies. Ethan Brooks had taught them both strategy. He just never imagined they'd use it against him. Thomas Bennett's office towered above Manhattan like a fortress, its glass walls catching the morning sun as if reflecting back the power plays of the city. Tamara entered in silence, her heels sharp against the marble floor, her face composed into the perfect mask she had worn every day since finding that golden strand of hair. She was no longer the wife who hummed in her kitchen. She was a strategist walking into a war council. Thomas, her attorney and mentor since her Harvard days, studied the folder Marcus had compiled. His hands, steady after decades of handling the bloodiest divorces in New York, hesitated as he turned the final page. Tamara, what you're proposing isn't just divorce. This is annihilation. She sat across from him in her burgundy suit, the color of dried roses and old blood. I don't want to wound him, Thomas. I want to end him. I want to strip him of everything he values, his company, his reputation, his illusion of being untouchable. Thomas leaned back, steepling his fingers. Legally, you're in a strong position. You own 40% of Brooks and Associates outright. Ethan holds another 40%. The rest belongs to minority shareholders. If you flip just 11% to your side, you'll control the company. And with the evidence of fraud, hidden assets, and the affair, you could take him for everything in the divorce. The houses, the art collection, even custody of Marcus. Tamara's gaze did not waver. Could, Thomas, or will? That depends on how far you're willing to push. She rose and walked to the window. Below, the city pulsed with ambition, millions of dramas unfolding at once. She had spent 2 decades building an empire with Ethan, believing it was theirs. He had turned it into a performance, a lie. I spent 20 years building this legacy beside him. I will not let him destroy it. I want him to lose not just the company, but the narrative. I want him remembered as the man who was brought down by the woman he underestimated. Thomas studied her with something like awe. Then we need to move carefully. First, secure your assets. Move everything you legally can into protected accounts. Second, start quietly building alliances with the minority shareholders. Third, document every move he makes between now and the moment you strike. The party will be your stage, but you'll need absolute precision. She turned from the window, her expression carved from steel. Precision is my language. Prepare the paperwork, quietly. By the time our anniversary arrives, I want everything ready to file. That afternoon, Tamara sat in the orchid-filled conservatory of Victoria Peterson, widow of one of Brooks and Associates' earliest investors. Victoria, diamonds glittering at her throat, sipped her tea with the grace of Manhattan's old guard. Darling, to what do I owe this pleasure? I need your support, Victoria, Tamara said evenly. Ethan has been making reckless unilateral decisions. The Mumbai expansion is bleeding money. He's destabilizing the company. I want to restructure leadership before it collapses. Victoria's sharp eyes flicked over her teacup. This wouldn't have anything to do with that blonde thing I saw him parading through the Carlisle, would it? Tamara's smile didn't falter. I'm concerned with the company's future, not Ethan's extracurriculars. Victoria set down her cup with a decisive click. I always liked you better anyway. Ethan's charming, but you're the one with the brains. What do you need? Your proxy vote when the time comes, and your discretion. Victoria's smile widened. Done. On one condition. When you destroy him, I want a front row seat. You'll have it, Tamara promised. Over the next weeks, she repeated the performance with each shareholder, adjusting her pitch like a virtuoso. To Daniel Foster, bitter from his own divorce, she offered justice. To Nathan Caldwell, long resentful of Ethan's arrogance, she offered revenge. Even Sophia Reed, Ethan's own assistant, quietly promised her support, remembering every dismissal and every slight Ethan had ever thrown her way. Meanwhile, at home, Tamara perfected the role of the devoted wife. She brought Ethan coffee, kissed his cheek in the halls, supported his risky plays in board meetings. So flawless was her act that even Ethan grew suspicious. One night, he caught her watching him over dinner. You're different lately, he said, fork pausing mid-air. She tilted her head, her smile warm. Maybe I'm just remembering what matters. His eyes softened, relief flooding him. He reached across the table, took her hand. God, T, I love you. You're everything to me. She let the words hang in the air like smoke. Then she leaned forward and whispered, I know. Later, when he kissed her forehead and drifted into sleep, Tamara slipped into Marcus's pool house command center. Her son sat surrounded by glowing screens, digital trails of his father's betrayal illuminating his face. He's planning something, Marcus said, scrolling. Shell companies in Delaware, properties in Miami and Austin, offshore accounts. He's preparing to leave. Tamara's lips curved into the faintest, most dangerous smile. Then we'll let him plan. We'll let him think he's winning. And when the night comes, when all the lights are on him, we'll take everything. She stood tall, the queen who had finally chosen her gambit. Ethan Brooks thought he had taught her how to play the game. He had forgotten one truth. The queen is always the most dangerous piece on the board. The boardroom at Brooks & Associates gleamed under the morning light, a cathedral of glass and steel where billions of dollars had been won and lost. Ethan Brooks stood at the head of the table, his confidence filling every inch of space like expensive cologne. He tapped his tablet, projecting charts onto the wall. We're up 18% year over year. The Singapore merger is exceeding projections. This is what happens when we take bold risks. Applause murmured around the room, but Tamara wasn't watching the numbers. She was watching faces. Daniel Foster gave her the faintest nod. Victoria Peterson tapped her nails twice on the polished wood, their signal. Nathan Caldwell kept his expression neutral, but his eyes flicked toward her in acknowledgement. Allies everywhere, hidden in plain sight. I'd like to propose a small change, Tamara said, her voice cutting smoothly through Ethan's momentum. Every eye turned to her. An update to our voting protocols, modern governance standards, nothing major, just aligning with best practices. Ethan barely looked up. Whatever you think is best, darling. You handle the legal minutiae better than anyone. A ripple of discomfort passed through the board. His dismissal landed badly, especially with the very people Tamara had been cultivating in secret. She caught Victoria's smirk, Caldwell's raised brow. Ethan thought he was untouchable. He had no idea the ground beneath him was shifting. Thomas Bennett will draft the revisions, Tamara added, gesturing toward her attorney at the far end of the table. We can finalize them at the anniversary celebration, a perfect blend of business and pleasure. Ethan chuckled. That's unlike you, T. Mixing business with romance? She smiled. I'm full of surprises lately. When the meeting adjourned, Tamara lingered. Eleanor Peterson, Victoria's wife, approached her quietly. 3%, she whispered, sliding a folder into Tamara's hands. My father left them in my maiden name. Ethan doesn't know they exist. They're yours when you're ready. Tamara slipped the folder into her bag without breaking her stride. The math was beautiful now, 14% secured, just a little more, and Ethan's empire would belong to her. That afternoon, Marcus texted her from the pool house. Dad's at the Carlisle, room 1247. Tamara glanced at her watch. Ethan was supposed to be meeting the Harrison group at 3. She checked his calendar. The meeting was tomorrow. Her pulse stayed steady. Instead of rage, a cold clarity filled her. She dialed Chloe Evans, the investigator Elise had recommended. I need photos. Carlisle Hotel, room 1247, 2 hours. That's a rush job. I'll pay triple. By 4, Tamara was sitting in the Carlisle lobby bar, meeting with an interior designer she had deliberately chosen as her alibi. Cameras caught her presence, her voice audible to nearby tables. I want to gut the master suite at our Hamptons house. Complete redesign. Nothing old remains. At 4:45, the elevator doors opened. Ethan stepped out, adjusting his tie. Vanessa emerged beside him, reapplying lipstick. His hand rested casually at the small of her back. They kissed quickly before parting ways. Tamara's fingers tightened around her martini glass, but her face remained serene. Are you all right? The designer asked. Perfect, Tamara said, sipping her drink. Absolutely perfect. That evening, Ethan returned home with flowers, gilt roses. Tamara arranged them in her grandmother's vase, humming softly as though delighted. How was the Harrison meeting? She asked. Productive. I think we'll close by Friday. She smiled warmly, eyes never leaving his. That's wonderful. You've been working so hard. He reached across the table, touched her hand. You're my foundation, T. Everything I am is because of you. Funny thing about foundations, she said, her voice soft, almost affectionate. People forget about them until they crack. He frowned. What made you say that? Oh, something I read about architecture. How even the strongest structures can collapse when their integrity is compromised. She smiled sweetly, lifted her wine glass. To us. He clinked his glass against hers, unaware he was drinking to his own destruction. Later that night, Marcus showed her new evidence. Ethan had registered a shell company in Delaware, offshore accounts in the Caymans, $70 million already moved, real estate in Miami and Austin purchased under the new entity. He's planning to run, Marcus said. With her. Tamara studied the documents. Her lips curved, not in sadness, but in victory. Let him plan. Let him think he's free. When the curtain falls, he'll realize every move he made only built my case stronger. Marcus watched her, both in awe and in fear. You're scary sometimes, Mom. Good, she said, eyes glinting with fire. He forgot to be scared of me. That was his first mistake. Ethan Brooks believed he was orchestrating a new beginning. What he didn't know was that every lie, every dollar, every kiss with his mistress was already woven into the trap his wife was preparing, and the stage for his ruin was almost ready. The text arrived on a Wednesday morning while Tamara was reviewing contracts, her pen hovering above the page. It was from an unknown number. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of a live grenade. I know about you. We should meet. Vanessa. Tamara laughed, startling her assistant Sophia, who had just entered with coffee. Good news? Sophia asked, tilting her head. Unexpected news, Tamara replied smoothly, already tapping out a response. Bergdorf Goodman Cafe, 2:00. Come alone. She arrived early, choosing a table where she could watch the entrance. Her tea sat untouched as the minutes ticked by. At 2:10, Vanessa swept in. Up close, she was exactly as Tamara had expected. Young, nervous, beneath a coat of borrowed confidence, her Chanel suit freshly purchased with Ethan's money. "Mrs. Brooks," Vanessa began, sliding into the chair opposite her. "Miss Hartley," Tamara said calmly. "You asked for this meeting. Let's hear what you have to say." "He's leaving you," Vanessa blurted out, her voice trembling despite her attempt at poise. "He loves me. We're building a future together." "Is that so?" Tamara asked, her tone more amused than wounded. Vanessa leaned forward eagerly, mistaking the coolness for disbelief. "We're moving to Miami. He's starting a new firm there. He wants children. He says he'll be a better father this time." Tamara's fingers tightened around her teacup, though her face never changed. Marcus, their son, the boy who had believed in his father's integrity, the boy Ethan had reduced to a do-over. She set the cup down with deliberate care. "And you believe him?" "I know you think I'm naive," Vanessa said quickly, "but he promised. He told me you don't understand him anymore, that you've become more business than love." Tamara opened her phone, sliding it across the table. On the screen was a photo of another young blonde woman. "This was Lauren. He promised to leave me for her too. That was 5 years ago." She swiped again. Another face appeared. "Nicole. 3 years ago. Same promises. Same Chanel. Same Miami fantasy. You're not special, Vanessa. You're a pattern." Vanessa's face drained of color. "You're lying." "I'm educating," Tamara replied, her voice cool and sharp. "Do you really think a man who's been married 20 years doesn't have rhythms, habits, history? You're not the first, and you won't be the last." Vanessa's hands shook as she reached for her bag. "You're just scared because he's finally leaving you." Tamara stood, signaling the waiter. "I'm not scared, darling. I'm preparing. In 5 weeks, at our anniversary party, Ethan's entire world will collapse. You can either step out of the blast radius or be consumed by it. Your choice." Vanessa's voice rose, cracking with desperation. "Is that a threat?" "It's a kindness," Tamara said, sliding cash onto the table. "The last one you'll get from me." That evening, Ethan was restless at dinner, his phone buzzing with unanswered texts. Tamara poured him wine, her expression all warmth. "Everything all right?" she asked sweetly. "Just personnel issues," he muttered. "Nothing you need to worry about." She leaned across the table, brushed his hand. "I always worry about you. It's part of loving someone." His eyes searched hers for any trace of suspicion. He found none. She was flawless. "If something were wrong, really wrong, you'd tell me, right?" "Of course," she said, her smile soft, her lie seamless. "We don't keep secrets." Later, while he showered, his phone buzzed again. Vanessa's final message glowed on the screen. "If you don't love me, just say so. I'm scared. Please." Tamara's reflection in the mirror caught her eye. For the first time in weeks, she almost felt pie for the girl. Almost. But pity was a luxury she no longer afforded anyone. Vanessa thought she was competing for Ethan's love. She had no idea she was standing in the middle of a battlefield already rigged to explode. 5 days before the anniversary party, the St. Regis ballroom was a cathedral of glass and light, a stage awaiting its sacrifice. Tamara stood in the center of the room, her black Valentino dress flowing like armor even in rehearsal. Technicians scurried around her, setting up screens and sound systems. She raised her hand, and the room stilled. "The screens need to be larger," she commanded. "Every corner must see everything. When the lights dim, I want no shadow for him to hide in." The coordinator laughed nervously. "That's quite a production for an anniversary video." Tamara's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "My husband deserves drama. He's given me 20 years of it." By afternoon, Marcus arrived, carrying his laptop like a soldier bringing a weapon to the front lines. His fingers flew across the keys, syncing the files with the ballroom system. 9:47 on the dot, he said. "That's when the lights go down. That's when the truth plays." Tamara touched his shoulder, pride and sorrow mixing in her chest. "It's perfect. Tonight will be the night our empire changes forever." The next day, Thomas Bennett handed her a folder heavier than iron. Inside were divorce papers, fraud complaints, and board resolutions, each page a nail in Ethan's coffin. By Monday, the board will vote him out. By Tuesday, the government will move on the fraud charges. Are you absolutely certain you want this so public? Tamara signed her name with a steady hand. He humiliated me privately. He'll be destroyed publicly. Let the world watch. Let them understand what happens when you mistake my love for weakness. But fate, or cruelty, always had a final twist. Friday morning, Vanessa appeared at Tamara's office. Her face pale, her hands trembling. She didn't bother with pleasantries. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. Tamara's world tilted, though her face remained carved from stone. "How far along?" 6 weeks. He told me to end it, said the timing was wrong, that we should wait until after the divorce. But there is no divorce, is there? He's been lying to me, too. For the first time, Tamara truly looked at the girl, not as an enemy, not as a parasite, but as a frightened woman who had fallen into the same trap Ethan had once set for her. "What will you do?" Tamara asked softly. "I don't know," Vanessa said, tears streaking her mascara. "I thought he'd be happy. He said he wanted children. He said he wanted to do it right this time." Tamara exhaled, slow and sharp, her decision crystallizing like ice. "Keep the baby if you want. I'll see to it you're provided for in the settlement. Ethan Brooks will carry the weight of this choice for the rest of his life." Vanessa blinked in shock. "Why would you help me?" "Because the child is innocent," Tamara said simply. "And because I want Ethan to face every consequence of his betrayal, including the ones that cry at night." Saturday dawned with golden light that spilled into the Brooks estate. Tamara rose early, making French toast as if it were any other morning, humming while the scent of syrup filled the kitchen. Ethan wandered in, smiling at the scene. "You're in a good mood." "It's our anniversary party," she replied, her voice soft, almost playful. 20 years, Marcus leaving for Colombia, our company thriving. Why wouldn't I be happy? He pulled her into his arms, kissed her temple. "I don't deserve you." "No," she whispered against his lips. "You don't." By evening, the St. Regis glowed with chandeliers and white roses. Guests arrived in glittering gowns and tailored suits. The city's elite filled the ballroom, raising champagne glasses to toast the couple everyone believed was untouchable. Ethan, flawless in his tuxedo, clasped Tamara's hand as they entered, his smile wide, his pride blinding. He leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Tonight, I'll show them how much I love you." Tamara's eyes glittered like sharpened diamonds. "Yes," she whispered back. "Show them. The stage is ready." Neither he nor the crowd knew they weren't attending a celebration of love. They were walking into an execution. The ballroom lights dimmed at 9:47, the exact minute Ethan and Tamara had exchanged vows 20 years earlier. 200 of Manhattan's most powerful people leaned forward in anticipation, expecting romance. What they received was revelation. On the massive screens, their wedding photo glowed first, young faces smiling with the innocence of forever. Then Tamara's voice, cool and commanding, swept across the room. 20 years ago, I believed in forever. Tonight, you will see what forever really looks like. The first receipt flashed on the screen, crisp and damning. The Carlyle Hotel, room 1247. Gasps rippled through the audience. More receipts cascaded across the screen. December, January, February. Each date a nail hammered into Ethan's perfect mask. Ethan shot to his feet, his champagne trembling in his hand. "Turn it off," he hissed. But the screens kept rolling. Jewelry purchases from Cartier, Tiffany, Harry Winston. Diamond earrings, a bracelet, a necklace worth more than most people's homes. Tamara's voice cut through the murmurs. These were not gifts for me. These were offerings to his mistress. All heads turned as Vanessa's Instagram photos appeared, her smile frozen, her captions glowing with hollow inspiration. Then the hotel hallway footage filled the screens, Ethan and Vanessa entering hand in hand, kissing, before disappearing into the room. The crowd erupted, whispers and gasps ricocheting like bullets. Ethan unged toward Tamara, but Marcus stepped between them, his young shoulders squared, his eyes blazing. "Don't," he said, voice amplified by the microphone. And still, Tamara's narration continued. The betrayal went deeper. Financial records filled the screens now. Wire transfers to the Caymans, shell companies in Delaware, $70 million hidden. Fraud, deception, theft, not just of a wife's trust, but of a company's integrity. Thomas Bennett rose at the back of the room. The FBI and IRS have already been notified. Charges are in motion. Ethan's face drained of color. He staggered, clutching at the edge of a table. "Tamara, please." But her voice overpowered him. Audio clips filled the air. Ethan's own words, recorded from his mistress's phone. "Be patient, baby. Once the money's secure, we'll leave. Tamara's boring anyway. 20 years of the same person would drive anyone crazy. You're my future. She's just obligation." The word hit like a bomb. Obligation. The room shuddered with gasps. Society matrons whispered behind jeweled hands. Investors pulled out phones, already drafting exits from Brooks and Associates. Ethan looked around the ballroom, sweat beading on his temple, realizing he was a king stripped naked in his own court. Tamara stepped forward, her diamond necklace glittering beneath the chandeliers. 20 years, she said into the microphone, her eyes locked on Ethan's. An empire, a family, a life reduced to obligation. But I am not his obligation. I am his reckoning. From table 12, Vanessa rose, trembling. Her voice cracked but carried. "I'm pregnant. He told me to end it. Said it was bad timing." The ballroom detonated in shock. Chairs scraped. Voices rose. Reporters slipped out. Phones pressed to ears. Ethan collapsed into his seat, his face a mask of ruin. Victoria Peterson stood, pearls gleaming like weapons. "I move that Ethan Brooks be removed as CEO immediately." "Seconded," Daniel Foster barked. Hands shot up across the room. The count was overwhelming. "Motion carried," Thomas Bennett announced. "Effective immediately." Ethan looked up at Tamara, his voice a whisper drowned by the storm. "You planned this for months." 3 months, she confirmed, her voice sharp as glass. 3 months I smiled while you betrayed me. 3 months I gathered evidence while you gathered lies. She slipped her wedding ring off, then his, dropping them both into his champagne glass. The diamonds sank like anchors. "Give these to your next victim." The room fell silent. Marcus stepped forward, laptop in hand, his voice steady. "Every email, every text, every receipt. I helped her. I chose her. I chose truth." Ethan reached for his son, desperation breaking his voice. "Marcus, I'm your father." "No," Marcus said coldly. "You're nothing. Fathers don't destroy families. Fathers don't lie. You're a fraud. And tonight, everyone knows it." Tamara turned to the crowd, raising her glass. "To new beginnings." The room thundered with applause, cameras flashing like lightning. Ethan sat shattered, his empire turned to ash, his son's loyalty ripped away, his wife triumphant. Tamara Brooks, once the queen beside a king, had just proven the queen was the most dangerous piece on the board. Monday morning arrived, cloaked in silence heavier than storm clouds. The 40th floor of Brooks and Associates, now stripped of Ethan's name, felt like a battlefield after the war. Employees glanced nervously toward the corner office, where the new nameplate gleamed on the glass. Tamara Lewis, Chief Executive Officer. The headlines had spread like wildfire. The Queen's Gambit, they called it. The wife who turned betrayal into public execution. Social media pulsed with videos from the anniversary party. Ethan's humiliation replayed millions of times before breakfast. Ethan himself was nowhere to be seen. Security had strict orders to keep him out, but his PR essence lingered in every shadow. At 9 sharp, the board convened. Victoria Peterson clasped Tamara's hand firmly. "You've done what most women only dream of. You took back everything." Tamara's gaze swept across the room. "This isn't just revenge, it's resurrection. From this day forward, Lewis Enterprises will be built on integrity, not deception, on truth, not masks." The vote was unanimous. Ethan Brooks was finished. Tamara Lewis reigned alone. Downstairs, a commotion broke the calm. Ethan had come anyway. Disheveled, his once perfect suit wrinkled, his face aged years in days. Security flanked him, but he shoved past, his voice breaking. "Tamara, please, We need to talk. She descended the marble stairs slowly, each step measured like a queen descending to face a fallen king. We're talking now. Your preference was public, remember? His eyes brimmed with desperation. I love you. I made mistakes, but I love you. Don't destroy me completely. Someone in the room actually laughed. Tamara's face remained stone. You love yourself. You loved the thrill, the lies, the applause. But me? You never knew me. You turned our son into a spy in his own home. You destroyed what we built. That was your choice. Marcus appeared at her side, tall and steady. He met his father's eyes without flinching. You taught me words like honor and loyalty. Then you showed me they meant nothing to you. I don't want a father who can't live his own lessons. You're nothing to me now. The words cut deeper than any revelation Tamara had delivered. Ethan staggered, reaching for his son, but Marcus stepped back, taking his mother's hand. We're done, Marcus said flatly. Security moved in, guiding Ethan toward the doors. His last words echoed through the lobby. You'll regret this. You can't erase me. But Tamara didn't look back. I don't need to erase you, she said coldly. You'll erase yourself. 2 days later, the news broke again. Ethan Brooks had been arrested in Miami on charges of wire fraud and conspiracy. The empire he thought untouchable had crumbled into dust. The man who once commanded boardrooms with a glance was now reduced to handcuffs and headlines. That evening, Tamara stood at the window of her penthouse, Marcus beside her. The city lights stretched before them, golden and endless. We survived, Marcus said softly. No, Tamara corrected, her voice calm, unshakable. We rose. She traced the skyline with her eyes, remembering the girl from New Orleans who once stood on a stool learning her grandmother's recipes, the law student who dared to dream, the wife who built an empire alongside a man who betrayed her. That girl was gone. In her place stood a woman forged in fire, a queen who had claimed her throne. Her phone buzzed. Michael Okoro, a partner from another firm, had sent a simple message. Congratulations. Dinner soon? Tamara smiled faintly, but her answer could wait. Tonight was not about beginnings with someone new. Tonight was about honoring what she had built with her own 2 hands. She turned to Marcus. Tomorrow we start fresh. A new company. A new legacy. One built on our terms. He nodded, pride in his eyes. I'm with you, Mom. Always. Outside, the city roared, but inside, Tamara felt peace for the first time in months. Ethan Brooks was gone, his name a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms, but Tamara Lewis remained, untouchable, unbreakable, a woman who had turned betrayal into resurrection. The queen had taken the king. Game over, and for Tamara, a new game had just begun.